Welcome to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I'm joined by a brand new guest. She is an online mindset and nutrition coach, the creator of the Eliza method, and an all-round hybrid athlete. Welcome to the show, Hannah Rowbottom.
Hello, it's so exciting to be on here. It feels so professional.
I do. Well, even though I like smash my mic out the way and like do these weird and wacky introductions, I think it just I try and make it as professional as possible, but with the edge of Harry Purdy in it as well. You know what I mean?
A little bit of a twist.
Yeah, 100%. We don't want it to be too. We don't want it to be too like straight and perfect because otherwise it loses a bit of personality, doesn't it?
It's authentic. It's authentic.
There you go. That's the word we're looking for. How are you anyway?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Is it your first podcast experience?
I've been on one before, but that was with another fitness friend who she's sort of building her podcast too. So a low key one.
Nice. What are you looking forward to most about coming on a show again?
I think being put on edge. I don't know. I don't know what to expect, like what you've got lined up to ask me, or I quite like going into these sorts of conversations with people I don't actually know personally that well, because I feel like you can go down tangents that you have like those mind-blowing kind of conversations, and you're like, actually, wow, this is really cool, and this is why we do what we do.
Yeah,
So I'm excited to have one of those kind of conversations again.
amazing. Obviously, I've done a little bit of research into you, and I do it with every guest. Not too much, don't worry, but to an extent where I've like tried to get a little bit of background about why you're doing what you're doing now. And I always find with this is definitely one of the takeaways that I've had from running this show for nearly 3 years now, it may even be 3 years, is that with people who then go into the space of helping other people, whether it be with stopping drinking alcohol, getting leaner, going into bodybuilding, whatever the scenario may be, there's always a story about why you get to that place. And I looked at your kind of background and stuff, and your story with regards to your own fitness comes with its own kind of challenges and sticking points that you went through yourself. So I'll let you explain what they were. But going back to where we're going here, it's about creating positive body image and how you've had those challenges yourself, right?
So I think I come from a similar background that a lot of young girls particularly struggle with. And I think that stems from growing up. I've always been super sporty. I was doing something like it when I was at school. There was a different activity going on every night, whether that was netball, football, like dance, gymnastics, jiu-jitsu, swimming. I loved it all, like horse riding. You name it, I've probably tried it at some point. And looking back, I think from then, I've always had a more muscular build, if you will. But growing up, I never saw it like that. And I've always been someone who's been super self-conscious in my body, always thought I was like the bigger person, which is ironic because looking back, I was never overweight as a kid, but I never saw that growing up. And I think I'm also quite conscientious where my like studies are concerned. So I was always quite academic. School was always really important to me, like getting good grades and all of that. So sort of as I migrated into high school and got into my, GCSEs, A levels, they took the priority in my life, and then sports went on the back burner. Not that I did like stopped being active altogether, but the activity wasn't the same. And then I think it was when I was 16 and I was actually able to go to like join my local gym. That's when I started going again, and didn't really know what I was doing. The typical, see what you see on Instagram, follow those kind of workouts, just wing it as you go. But like that was really something I fell back in love with, and it reminded me just how much I loved being active and all the rest. At this point, bearing in mind, I despised running, which if anyone goes onto my Instagram page, you'll think, really? Because you seem to post about it all the time. But I hated it with a passion. I was never good at it. I mean, I'm still not great, but like I love it. And then when I went to university, that's where I think things took a slight turn in the sense that I still went to the gym, still didn't really know what I was doing entirely, but that was still something I kept in my routine. But my relationship, my body image kind of plummeted, very much so, because
Where do you think that comes from?
I think a huge part to play is social media in comparison. And I know that answer sounds cliche because I think that's what everyone says, but I think it does have a huge impact. But I actually had the full 180 in terms of like a lifestyle transformation when lockdown hit. And I know obviously that was like a huge, like devastating time for the whole world. But for me, on like a personal level, it changed my life completely for the better. And it gave me that time where I remember being sat in my room and feeling the lowest I'd ever felt and just thinking, I'm sick of feeling like this. And I was always very much that positive person. But behind closed doors, it was never like that with myself. And I just thought, I don't want to live a life like this anymore. It's not okay. Like, I want my health to be a priority. Like, it does matter to me. And I thought, now lockdown's come, this is a perfect opportunity for me to just pull my finger out and sort my shit out, basically. So I then went into very much doing like the home workouts every day, almost a little, like in hindsight, probably too intensely, because it would get to the point where if I didn't do something every single day, I would feel guilty. I'd feel like I had failed or whatever. It just had to be done, and it had to be done to a very high intensity. But it was then when lockdown started to lift and we had the freedom, we could go back to the gym again, my horizon, shall we say, expanded a little. So after I'd completed my second year at university, that was still in the pandemic, so everything was weird and it was closed down and my labs were shut and everything. It just wasn't a great experience. We then had the opportunity to go and do an industrial placement year if we wanted to. I decided that I didn't want this to be my university experience. I wanted to get more out of it. I still hadn't got a clue what I wanted to do post uni. I enjoyed biochemistry, but I always knew it was never going to be something I wanted to do long term. It was more of a gateway opportunity into the world of science because originally I wanted to be a med student, didn't get an offer for med school, so just decided to go straight into biochemistry, potentially do postgrad medicine. But also decided I didn't really want to do that after anymore. The lifestyle, I think, of a doctor just didn't particularly appeal to me. So I decided to go and do a placement year in which I got an opportunity to work in big pharma. So when I got that role, it was kind of funny because I applied to this particular company because I knew they had a base not too far from where I lived at home. So I thought, oh, this will be smart. I can earn some money. I can commute from home. And then when they offered me, they were like, okay, you can go to Cambridge or you can go to Sweden if you would like. And I was like, oh, is the local one to me not an option? They were like, oh, well, it is, but with it being such a small site, you're not going to get the most of the opportunity if you go to that one. We recommend go to the bigger places. So I was like, well, cool. I live nowhere near Cambridge, so if I'm going to move that far, I might as well move to Sweden. And why not? Let's give it a go. So I did, and honestly, to this day, best year of my life. I absolutely. Have you ever been to Scandinavia? Or
No, never Scandinavia. No, where have I been? Latvia. That's like more Eastern Bloc than Scandinavia. Yeah.
yeah, it's unreal. Like so nice, and I think that was incredibly pivotal in my whole transition towards like fitness and even coaching, because it was when I I moved in this August of 2021, that would have been. And it was in the December that I decided to get my own coach when it came to fitness because I hit like a massive rut in my training. And that was at that point, the gym was my almost escape from work life, your de-stressor, the opportunity to work on yourself. And I thought if I hit a rut here, I have no idea how I'm going to cope with stress because I am one of those people that gets quite stressed quite easily. And that was my outlet. And I thought if I'm not enjoying this, I don't know what I'm going to fall back on. Um, so got a coach, and that was a complete game changer. I'm still with him now, like 2 years down the line, like over 2 years.
The powerlifting.
Well, funny because I contacted him saying, hey, I would just like to, actually learn more of like the science behind lifting, understand actually what's going on. So I've got confidence in what I'm doing. I want to be, it was the typical, like, I want to like tone up and just get stronger. And he was like, okay, cool. Well, in order to tone up, you're going to have to build some muscle tissue. That was like straight blank. He said, we're not going to be cutting. We're just going to be building some muscle. And at the beginning, I was like, cool, sound with me. So kind of followed like a bodybuilding style training at the beginning. And then he was like, how do you fancy like, you know, putting in some deadlifts in there or like trying some of that out? I was like, sure, I've no idea how I'm going to respond to it, but let's go. Um, yeah, and I guess the rest was kind of history because then I was like, actually, this is kind of fun.
Insane.
Um, but where the running came into play, this I love powerlifting. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy it. But I don't know if you well, you definitely did because you you know you're a hybrid athlete too, as the term goes. But
I think the hybrid athlete phrase is a funny one, isn't it? Because like, where do you even? What I've found with it is like, where's the line? Where can you like? Where's the specific point where you can identify and say, oh yeah, I've met the threshold for this, right? I don't know what that is. It's
I
bizarre.
love having this conversation with people. I love it even more having it with like high rocks people and CrossFit people because they're
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, they're hybrid, and I'm like, well, if we want to be specific about
yeah,
this,
yeah. You're not.
um, the I believe the term was coined by oh, what's his name? A guy called Alex. Is it Viada? Yeah,
Or
I
you know more than me here.
pronounced his last name completely wrong. But he essentially defines it as a mode of training where you are training two different sport-like modalities that don't necessarily complement each other,
Oh
but
well,
you're aiming
then
to progress in them both. So, like powerlifting and endurance running, for example, that don't work for each other, but you know you can still improve in them both. Which is why things like I guess CrossFit and High Rocks, for example, whilst you could be like, yeah, it's hybrid in the sense you require strength and endurance, High Rocks is its own thing in itself, and CrossFit is its own thing in itself. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's where, I mean, it's not that deep. It doesn't really matter, but
no, for sure. And with high rocks specifically as well, of course, it's madly impressive, and it's very much heart related exercise, right? You are
yeah.
pushing your body to a threshold state where you've got to sustain high rep, high movement. But, and if there's a high rocks athlete, listen to this, please don't take offense. The weight that you're shifting isn't that heavy, right? Like, well, it is over the distance and the speed that you're moving it. Granted, this isn't taking anything away, but when you look at hybrid athletes in the sense that we're training at, the weights that we are trying to move are always at that top kind of 90 to 100% if when we're going for,
Whatever.
yeah, exactly
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. And don't get me wrong, like High Rocks is something I would love to try out. I would love to do a High Rocks competition. It's somewhere down the line. Um, and it's not saying it's not difficult at all, but if you want to be particular, it was like that particular guy, like that Alex guy who just coined this term, and that's where it's come from. But obviously, over the year, it's been super trendy to be like, oh, I want to run and lift. And it's like, cool, you're looking after, you know, both your heart health and your muscular health. Like that's kind of where that is. But it's I think it's when you take it to both to an extreme that's when it's sort of considered more hybrid. But again, if someone wants to say they hybrid train and they want to look after their cardiovascular system as well as like build their muscle, I'm all for it. I'm not going to be like, no, you're not hybrid train. I'm like, yeah, do that because that's great. Um, so no, yeah, that's just a little bit of a tangent.
I think where you said as well at the start before we started actually is like where we've got some similarities. We've had a few conversations. I think it really suits the like hybrid training in itself really suits the creative mind or the mind that like always wants to be doing something. I genuinely, obviously, well, I say obviously, I completed the ultra marathon last year whilst still training in a gym. But I wasn't going anywhere near like top percentages with my weights. But when I got into the London Marathon, I just started a new block of like let's get strong with in my SBD again. And I said to my coach, Harry, I was like, can we run both? And he was like, well, we're gonna really have to manage you, like in terms of because he knows what I'm like. Well, actually, funny story. Let's go. We'll talk about Harry for 2 minutes. Is the start of the year, as in me, not my coach, just to save any confusion. Started the year with the idea that I was going to try and cut a little bit, but then with the marathon being accepted into the marathon, that's like a stupid idea, right? Performance over weight loss every day of the week. Then it was maintaining or trying to get stronger as well. And actually, it's now April. What date is it today? Help me out.
The 10th
April the
of
10th. Thank you. Is only been the last week to 10 days where I've felt like it's really pushed me to the limit. I've really managed myself well just by like ensuring that I've got fuel in my body, as in food. And going back to you with like your transition from thinking that being skinny is like the thing to do, and being in a calorie deficit all the time is the thing to do. Actually, when I was looking through your progress photos, there's an example of you that's 6 kilograms heavier than the photo before, but you look so much healthier. Like your skin looks fresher. Whether that's fake tan or not, Hannah, I'm not sure. But but the point still stands, right? And I think that's a mentality, especially when you're at the beginning of training and gym, that isn't spoken about enough. That people are just after getting smaller. Whereas actually, when you feel yourself, when you're potentially putting on muscle and training to gain muscle mass, you're then going to get that confidence. Is that something that you've experienced?
100%. And I think that has come from dabbling in different types of training. And as much as I could preach this till I'm blue in the face, like, please prioritize performance over aesthetics. I'm not knocking people if they have an aesthetic goal, like, all for it. Like, if you want to feel a bit leaner to be more confident and all the rest, like, go for it. But making sure you at least have a performance focus like element in your training is so important, because not only does, like you said, the creative mind, and Brad would probably tell you I'm severely like ADHD, not that I've ever been diagnosed, but I get bored really easily. So
Same.
keeping things mixed up and keeping things like different and exciting keeps that spark in your training. And I think when you have that spark, you have that excitement, you have that genuine happiness and fulfillment that comes from what takes up like a big part of your life, like your training. You know, you eat to train well, you sleep to train well. Everything that you do in your life is so that you can make the most out of what you're putting so much time and energy into. And when you find that almost harmony with those areas of your life and you're actually enjoying the reason behind it, without sounding cliche, but you really do glow differently. And I think your whole life transforms and the energy comes out, like it shows you, like no level of leanness can portray that kind of fulfillment. Um, but in the same space, I think you don't realize that until you've been there yourself. So until you've finally got to that physique that you think you would be happy with, and you're like, oh, actually, nothing's changed. I'm still not happy. That's when you realize it's a mindset thing, and that's when you need to do that work. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Have you how did you feel when, because I think I heard you talk about that on one of your other podcasts, how you wanted to drop a little bit of body weight, also train for a marathon, also train for your
Yeah.
powerlifting, which is funny because I laughed when I heard that, because it was the same with me. I came into this new year thinking, oh, I'm going to really focus on my powerlifting this year, because last year I focused on running. I also want to get a bit leaner because, again, body composition wasn't the focus last year at all. It was performance. And then I had the opportunity to do the London Marathon. I was like, well, I can't say no to this. Here I am.
Yeah.
But how did you find balancing all those three elements?
You turning into the interviewer now.
Well, you asked at the beginning if I had any questions, and I thought, you know
Yeah.
what, this is a good
No, I'm only
question.
joking. Yeah, so it's actually I've dropped body fat percentage, gained muscle mass, got stronger, and we'll find out in 10 days how how the endurance side of things goes.
Okay.
So two of the elements that I wanted to nail, like I've nailed. Obviously, I don't want to give too many sport. This is going out on Friday. So actually, my reel will go out. So I didn't get my deadlift PB, but my deadlift PB was done on Christmas Eve, not last Christmas. In fact, maybe 2 years ago. So I got really close to be like really, as you've seen,
You
really
were so
close.
close.
I got a 210 deadlift, which I'm still really happy, and that flew like it literally popped off the ground. We then went for a real clear deadlift PB of 220, 225. Sorry, 225. My previous deadlift was 220. It shifted on the first attempt. I had one of my calluses ripped in my left hand, and it slipped, and I just couldn't lock out before it slipped, and I had to put it back down. It really fucked me off because it moved really well, and I thought it was there still. And I went to pick it up the second time. I literally got it to like above my short line and just couldn't bring my bum through. I couldn't bring my hips through. And I, honestly, like when people do see the video, it's an almost lift. It's an 80% lift, and it's so close. But which is good. It's confidence because after the marathon, I know that I'll come back and be able to do that.
Mhm.
And without making excuses, but it's just the reality of it. The day before, I ran zero point 0.6 miles short of a half marathon. So like, who knows if I go into that lift like completely fresh, I lock my hips out because there's just a few extra like percentages of energy there. And then squat and strict shoulder presses tomorrow. If I get anything like anywhere near 75 to 80 kg on strict press, I'll be really, really happy. And then with squat, I don't know. My previous PB is 152.5. I reckon I could be putting 10 kg on that, maybe a bit more. Yeah.
Say with that with some confidence.
Yeah, yeah. I
I will
reckon
be.
I will be putting 10 kg on that. Yeah. But again, like today I've hybrid training ran well 4 miles, but like 2.5 of those were at threshold pace. So it's,
Mhm.
as you're aware, when you're trying to G your body up and get it used to being in clutch mode, basically. Like that's essentially what threshold training is, right? When you're going out running, you're putting your body in a place where you don't think you can sustain it, but you do anyway, and you carry on. So yeah, I'm not going into my squats as fresh as maybe I'd like to of, but that's the idea of hybrid, right? Is mad. Do you follow Fergus Crawley?
I don't know. I might
Oh, you
recognize his
should.
content.
He has just completed a 250-kilometer ultra, and his
Absolutely.
hybrid element was that he was doing a 250 deadlift as well. So a week before he did the ultra, he pulled 250, and it moved, it shifted, and then a week later he did 250k over 2 days, and that's like mega. Not saying that I'll ever do something like that, but if I can do something along those lines, I'll be like, I think that's definitely in the agenda. The trouble is, again, with this, it does take a lot out of you, and you do feel it. And I love play. I play football, right? And
Mhm.
for the last since I would say, well, I haven't played a competitive game of football now for over a year, which is like the first time in my life I've never not played. And I'm 31 now. So that means that I've not got that long left of being able to play. I don't play at a great standard, but being able to play at the best standard that I can, which
Mhm.
means that I've got to, if I want to prioritize football, I'm going to have to drop these silly endurance events for a bit. So, in answer to your question, we went a long way around it. I have managed to sustain all of those three things. What I want people to take away from this little like caveat that we've gone on though is that with my body fat percentage and muscle mass gain, it has been without focusing on it. It has been purely due to the fact that I've had two events in my diary that I've been physically preparing for. And that for me, having that leverage at the top of your like spectrum of why are you training? Yeah, because you want to get leaner, fine. Yeah, because you want to get fitter, fine. Yeah, because you want to get stronger, fine. But having something that's going to impact like people around you, if you're raising money for charity, let's just say, or it's a challenge that you've never done, having that as the thing that you're focused on, you're going to get those all three of those results and maybe more alongside it.
Absolutely. Like the aesthetic kind of comes as a byproduct of the drive
Sure.
towards a performance goal. But I think that's where you saying that I kind of want to touch back on what you said about the even if you could get close to running something I mean, how long was your ultra that you did?
Um, 54K.
How did you find that?
You are turning into the interviewer here. You ever thought
I'm
about
really curious because I'm like,
yeah,
do
have you
I
ever
dare?
thought about hosting your own podcast? But how did I find it? It was amazing. But when I've been on these training runs, I think, fuck me, this is a long way. Like 19 miles, like
Yeah.
running that amount of miles is a lot. And I think, what are you on about? You did like I'd have still had 15 more to go on my last long run. Like, you know, you can do it. It's
Yeah.
such a mind. But one thing about that day, and I'll always say this like till forever, when I got to halfway, I knew I'd done it. It was such a weird complex. It was really, really, really weird. I was so nervous. All I wanted to do was finish it. That's all I was bothered about. Just get over the finish line. Um, it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done mentally and physically, because it just sent my like personal resilience. Like, I went through some shit in training. I've told this story before. The fact that I went on my first ever trail run, like completely like naive to what I was taking on, did 16 miles. You're laughing at me. 16 miles. Um, and I had nothing, no gels. I had a bit of flapjack in my bag, just water, and
Oh,
I've never felt so fucked in all my life when I managed to finish it. But halfway, there's a place in where I live, well, not where I live, in Dorset, called Durdle Door. And I ran
mhm.
to Durdle Door, and it's beautiful there. And I like trotted up this hill at the end, and I felt like cramp. And I was like, oh no, like not a good time to get cramp. I'm only halfway through, kind of thing, 8 miles in. And then seriously, for that, like, I'd love to look back at my splits for that time back. It probably took me half a day to get back to my car, but no, like, I don't mind. I go deep. My brain and my body were just completely exhaust of anything. My glycogen stores would have been gone. All of my salts were completely depleted. I was mentally fucked. I just got back to my car and cried. And I drove home for like 30 minutes, just like, why am I so upset? And I looked into it, and it was because I put my body into just a state. Basically, it had nothing. I got, like, like the Ian Beale.
I was just about
Yeah,
to say I got
I've
nothing
got
there.
nothing left. And I didn't. Um, but that was the biggest. I'm so glad that happened,
Mhm.
because after that, I was like, this is not. I can't just wing this.
What
Like,
a
this
learning
is,
curve, yeah.
yeah, 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 1,000,000%. So then I looked into my salts, like my carbs, because I'm still 98 kg, right, and I can still shift over some distance. I have to really look after. I sweat a lot as well. Sorry for the detail. I really
Yeah.
have to look after my salt intake
Mm.
hugely, and make sure that that's balanced. I have to take 1,500 milligrams of sodium an hour for me to. I There's still maybe a chance I'll get cramp, but it like really reduces it. But also the pre-hydration, like 2 days before,
Yeah.
I'm like constantly like making sure I'm eating like good salts, like, like the Himalayan salts with every meal, putting it in my porridge just to make sure that there's stuff in my body. And then when it comes to the run, it's like 75 to 90 grams of carbs an hour to just make sure that my sugar levels and my glycogen levels are high. So yeah, like, it was how did I find it? Challenging, but it was fucking so worth it. Like, for for anybody who loves a challenge,
Um,
just sign up to something that you think you can't do, and then when you do it, like, yeah, I've never felt anything. I ran up to the it's like really weird. You're like on your own for ages. And I was overtaking a few people at the end, believe it or not. And then you start like hearing the buzz of the event area. And when I came through this like cut. Firstly, I ran into this field about like, I don't know, 3K out. And there was like 3 deer in the field. And they like jumped the fence in front of me. And that was like an amazing moment in
cool.
itself.
Yeah.
Just like, because I knew I was close. And I was like, wow, that just gave me like that like nice feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I could hear the music in the background, and like every like couple of paces I was taking, like, bearing in mind there's nothing left in your legs by this point. You're still running somehow. Your brain is like, don't run, but you're like, I am gonna finish this running.
Yeah.
And then you start hearing the crowd buzz, and then you come up, and then people like obviously clapping you because it's a long way, and everybody's there supporting the people that are finishing a bit later. And then I saw my mum going absolutely mental, like recording me as well. And it was just, I got like goosebumps from when I was running from my feet up to the back of my neck. But yeah,
Adrenaline. Yeah.
insane. Yeah,
That is actually something I think I definitely want to touch on. Side note, though, to anyone listening who wants to or is training for an endurance event, please, for the love of God, don't just wing it. Like,
yeah,
as you
yeah.
said
Oh,
before,
fuck me. Yeah,
fuel, please, fuel.
yeah, yeah.
Not just for the run itself, though. Like, you're going to feel like absolute shit if you try and hit these longer distances and you're not fueling correctly. But your recovery as well. Like, your training is only as good as your recovery. And if you're not fueling before the training, intra training, and post training, it's going to take a long time for you to recover. And you're not going to get the same training adaptation that you would if you just fueled correctly. So, flapjack, gels, whatever it is,
Yeah,
salts, take it on board. Even if you don't
100%.
use it, you're better off having it just in case.
I'm
Um,
going back to be the interviewer now. Is that all right?
yeah, go for it.
The Eliza method.
Yes,
Tell us about that. You like, I guess that you created this, right? This is your thing.
it is my thing. I made it up.
Yeah, nice. That I think. Do you know what? A, that's mega impressive. B, the format of it, I love. But I'd love you to explain it to us.
I actually think you're the first person, other than of course like my clients who I've, explained it to, like this is sort of the process we go through, or at least the I guess the values that underpin my coaching is how I describe it.
Yeah,
Um, I wanted something and to any coaches already listen to this, you'll know that you either like develop your own program, right, when you go into this world, or you develop some type of method that you like to kind of stick by or at least align yourself with when working with your clients. And so when I came into the coaching world, I was wanting to find my feet and okay, what was important to me? What did I want to make sure my clients would get out of working with me? I wanted it to be personal and authentic, but I didn't want it to be some sort of rigid cookie cutter approach. That's the typical phrase people use. Because I am very aware that no one size fits all. Things are gonna, need your method. It needs to adapt to the client's needs. And I also knew that I had the skills and the knowledge and the potential to help so many different people with different issues and goals that it just didn't quite sit with me that to have like one certain program to expect those potential clients to fit, if that makes sense. Um, so I wanted an approach that, kept my core values at the center, and showed flexibility to my approach to help people improve their nutrition, improve their mindset, improve their lifestyle, because that's what I aim to achieve. Um, so my middle name is Elizabeth. So the Eliza came from like the inspiration of that, with it being personal, but not about me specifically, if that makes sense. So that was the inspiration about with where that name came from. And from there, I came up with the pillars. So the first one's all to do with like educational empowerment. Then we have the L stands for like lifestyle integration. So whatever plan we decide to create is designed to fit your lifestyle. It's not like I'm going to give you a plan and be like, right, tick these boxes,
yeah,
whatever you're doing, make it happen. The I is last educational empowerment, lifestyle integration. Oh, intelligent nutrition practices. So this again, some people are going to like tracking on MyFitnessPal to improve their nutritional awareness. Some people are going to have to work on their relationship with food before they even consider anything like that. Totally fine. People are at different points in their life. You don't even need to use MyFitnessPal if you want to improve your nutritional awareness. Like food diaries might work better for you. Working on mindful eating behaviors might work better for you. Whatever it is, it's going to be tailored to you, and we're going to use it a smart approach to that, not something that's just going to be easy for me to track progress, if that makes sense. Z being focused on the zone of support, so showing you that I'm going to be with you every step of the way. You've got that accountability with me. I'm not just going to, pass you your plan and expect you to do it yourself. And the A being adaptive progress tracking method. So this is all about knowing that life throws curveballs at you at different, we can't always expect the challenges that are going to come up. And that's totally fine. Like, don't think that the plan we might have at the beginning is going to be something that is suited to your lifestyle. Perhaps like 2-3 months down the line, things might change, your goals might change, and that's cool. We just work around that and we figure out a plan that's going to work best for you and your goals at that moment in time. So I think this really just encompasses that understanding that it's not rigid and it can be flexible, and you can still progress without ticking or like being super rigid with your approach to nutrition and fitness. Because I think this is something that I learned very early on in my own journey. And it's like being that perfectionist and having that all or nothing mindset does not get you to where you want to be. Like, you could think, oh yeah, being super perfect, ticking all these boxes, oh, I'm doing everything by the book and I should be getting these textbook results. But it doesn't work like that. Like, life doesn't really ever allow for that, at least for you stand, unless you're a professional bodybuilder maybe, and your whole life is surrounded by that kind of thing. For the majority of people, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I
So,
completely agree. I completely agree. And I think that's where the yo-yo dieting
mhm.
life comes from, is that you get assigned this one thing that could be Slim Fast, Cambridge, Weight Watchers, Slimming World, and you're like, right, I'm going to do this for 3 months. And like you see it, don't you? You see, like, I mean, like family members of mine have done it. And you see them literally nailing it for 3 months. They have their shake in the morning, they have their shake at lunchtime, and then they eat a meal at night. And
Yeah.
then when it comes to the weekend, they might have like a Chinese, but their Chinese order is like bean sprouts and fucking I don't know what else. And you're like, okay, like fair enough. At least like maybe like you are committed. And then they like 3 months down the line, they've lost. Let's just go with 4 stone. Like yeah, I've nailed it. And then just go back again, like back into old habits. Don't not thinking about the all of the success they've had, just thinking that everything else that they've worked for that 3 months in an unhealthy way for sure is just going to sustain itself.
Yeah.
But you can't keep those results by going back to old habits. And that's why yourself and I, with our coaching methods, put in things that can be adapted to lifestyles, right? If you can adapt something, a healthy habit to your lifestyle that sticks forever rather
Mhm.
than just a small amount of time, then you're on to more of a winner than just doing something that's really unhealthy for a few months.
Absolutely. And I think this is where, I don't know how what you think of this, but when it comes to coaching and or like being a PT or whatever it is that you do, it's just so frustrating because the market favors quick fixes and it favors fast results and dramatic results in the shortest period of time. And for the likes of like you and I, who know that that's not always going to be with or like have the client's best interest at heart, and that's not always going to be something that they can sustain or what they really need. Because I think a really important part of being a coach is telling your client what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear. And there's a big difference between that sometimes. And it's not that you're not supporting them and their goals, it's just you're providing them with the knowledge and the experience to know how to get there and actually get the results they want and keep them. But when it comes to, marketing your services and obviously like trying to build your business, because at the end of the day, it's also your livelihood, like the dramatic before and afters in the suit, like I've just said, all the really impressive transformations are going to be what sells best. But we also know as like good ethical coaches that that's not what necessarily always aligns with us, because to get there, people don't talk about you having to go through a serious dramatic change or like shift in your life. Like if you're willing to make a lot of sacrifice, then sure, like you could do it. But for a lot of people, that's just not feasible. And I don't know if that frustrates you at all, but that really winds me up because,
Yeah, of
yeah.
course. Yeah. You even to the extent of you see some really powerful influencers and fitness coaches that have really good or had really good reputation getting caught out editing photos and for me it goes against like I'd like to say I'm quite an integral person
Yeah.
and I'm never going to sell anything to somebody that I don't think won't suit them. I want them to be aligned with like working on mindset and health at the same time. I want them to buy into my 100% mentality. I
Yeah.
want them to tell me the reasons why they want to work with me. I don't want to force down their throat that they're going to lose 5 stone in 100 days and they're going to be able to run a sub 20-minute 5K just like that. Like it comes with hard work. I can't do the things for them. They've got to be committed to making those changes. But when you've got people with millions of followers, like people like Stephen Bartlett, Courtney Black, unfortunately, been caught out for it as well. Like, and you're like, are their intentions really that good? Like, are they really that good? What are we being sold here? Like from like Stephen Bartlett's tone of being all really nice and stuff, but actually behind the scenes, like he just wants your money. He genuinely just wants his CEO business to keep getting bigger, and that is the truth. And of course, like don't get me wrong, I want my business to keep getting bigger, but there'll be
Mm.
a point where like if somebody, even to the extent that I've got trade union background, right? So if I ever employ somebody, I want them to be paid well for doing what they do. I don't want to just get somebody in that like from Fiverr and pay somebody from the Philippines like pennies to do my admin for them, whatever. I want to treat people who work for me because that falls under the 100% bracket, right? In my
Mhm.
journal, there's a bit that says like, who do you want to positively impact today? I couldn't have that in my journal if I thought I was conning somebody. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's a real dark side to our industry that definitely needs to be caught out a bit more. And actually, um, a a really well established guest is coming on who released a video recently. A guy called Ben Coomber, yep, who owns Awesome Supplements, and he released a Dear Stephen Bartlett video a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, and it's going to be really amazing to talk to him about that because yeah, I think it could go deep.
That'll be exciting. I look forward to hearing that episode
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
I think it could go in a few different ways, but it's definitely challenging, and I think it's important, like just speaking between you and I now and the listeners hearing as well, it's always important to keep your integrity, keep
Mhm.
doing like you know what your values are, Hannah. I know what my values are. Like stick to them. They will like the more people buy us, don't they? They don't buy like,
Absolutely.
of course they buy what we're selling as such, but they are putting trust in you. So as long
Mhm.
as you stay true to your values and what you think is the right thing, then I think we're on to a winner.
Absolutely. And I think when I first came into this coaching world, because I mean, I've not been here long at all. Like I fully started to take it seriously after I graduated from university last summer. But it can be super overwhelming. And I think it's, especially in the beginning, you can have like a massive bout of like imposter syndrome, which is kind of normal and it's expected because to a degree, I guess you are a kind of imposter because you don't have that experience behind you and you don't have that confidence that you eventually get the more experience you gain. And, um, the more you walk that road, I guess. But making sure that like whatever you do, as long as it aligns with your values and those values align with a good moral compass, I think that's when you know that you can't go far wrong. And obviously you're going to make mistakes, and I think this applies for everything in life, like whether it's your work, whether it's your personal life, your relationships, your hobbies. As long as you know everything that you do, everything that you say, and everything that you are aligns with your values and your moral compass, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, because as long as the intention was good and you meant well by it, no one can say anything like bad about you, because we're all human at the end of the day. We all make mistakes, and life is about learning and, taking different turns and understanding different things. And the more you know, the more you progress, right? So I think keeping those core values at like the center of everything you do. And I think this is why I really felt like I aligned better with a method rather than a rigid program, to so to speak. And that's where the Eliza method came from, because I thought, so long as I'm aligning with these values and these keep at the core of my coaching, I will have confidence to work with whoever it is wants my support and wants my help, because I know you can't go far wrong as long as you're sticking by these. Um, yeah, so I think that's a lot to be said for that.
Amazing. I want to ask you, I've got three questions left. Two of them you already know about. One of them is just I've made this up on the spot. We spoke about like your comeback from having poor body image, how you've got into the industry. Then you interviewed me for 10 minutes, which was fun. What are the three not non-negotiables? Because I've come to a bit of a realization I don't really believe in non-negotiables because everything's negotiable. But what are the three things that keep you at your best 100% self?
Movement, having a regular form of movement each day, doesn't have to be intense training, doesn't have to be a run, doesn't have to be, a heavy lifting session. It could be an easy walk, stretch, whatever it is. Some form of movement is going to make you feel a million times better. um Gratitude. Every single day I will think, it could be the smallest things, like, oh, that bird is making a nice sound, or
You
like
say,
this
you
cup
say
of
that
tea
as
really.
funny, but I very much resonate with you on that one. Yeah.
Literally, or like, oh, this cup of tea is really good today. You know what? The smallest things I make a post about it every week. Every Sunday, I have my weekly gratitude list, and it'll be moments through the week that I think, you know what, life's good, and life could be chaotic. It could be loads of things could be going wrong from like a business front, personal front, whatever. But looking for the positive in the little things is so important for keeping you grounded, and reminding like yourself what's important. Um, movement, gratitude. And I guess it's only right I say something to do with fueling yourself positively. Now, I say positively because it doesn't mean you have to be eating like salads or like loads of vegetables every day, even though I 100% encourage that because you're going to feel better about yourself. Eating foods that align with what you really want and what you know are going to nourish your body, whether that's like mindfully. So even if you want, a chocolate bar because it's going to make you feel good and you enjoy that, then good, do it. But do it from a place of positivity and do it from a place where you respect your body and you're putting in what you want to get out.
Yeah, I actually had I put a brain food story on the other day. I had like grapes, blueberries,
I saw-
oranges, apples, and then there was like 2 cubes of white chocolate on the plate. And I had so many people reply to it saying, "Why only 2 cubes of chocolate?" And I was like, "Well, I wanted to. I'd already eaten one of them, so there
Spoiler.
was so there was three, but I've got Easter chocolate, right? I've got some of it left. I don't want to like smash it. What would be the point of me choosing a plate of fruit and then having like a slab of chocolate as well, right? It's got a line, but also I wanted it. I wanted to have some chocolate at lunchtime, and that was the decision. But it actually made me laugh. People were like, you must be ridiculously disciplined, but what they don't see is the bit that I'd already eaten, and I just thought I'd just drop that in there. Final two questions for today's episode of the 100% podcast. Tradition. What is next for Hannah on the horizon? I think I'm going to know one thing you're going to say, and then what are your dreams, aspirations as well?
Okay, cool. So obviously we've got the London Marathon in T minus what like
Have you got your start time yet?
yeah, I think I start around the 10 o'clock half 10,
Oh, you're well early. If
or you're
you're,
just really
are you
late.
staying? Are you staying in London after?
Well, no, I'm going down on the Friday. And I'm very fortunately staying with a friend who lives a little just outside of
Nice.
the city centre. And then going up to Cambridge on that evening to see another friend because we're then going to Barcelona for a few days.
Oh wow, insane. Other things, dreams and aspirations. What are they?
So obviously building this coaching business is the top of my priority list at the moment. But a big reason why I decided to work online and be self-employed was so I had the freedom and the flexibility to go traveling. So at some point I want to have the financial freedom, obviously, to fund that. And that flexibility to go and see the world. I know it sounds cliche, but I would love to see Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, those areas. I'd love to go everywhere, but like they're at the top of my list at the moment.
Insane.
So at some point, maybe we could be chatting when I'm at the other side of the world.
Yeah, incredible. Final question. The my favorite question of the show. What is the greatest bit of advice you've ever been given?
This is a really hard one. I've thought hard about this because there's so many. I think advice you're given through your life, you could be given some real good pieces of advice, but it doesn't always relate to you as well until you really need to hear it. But I think one that's I've carried forward and it served me so well is always ask why. Always stay curious, and if something doesn't make sense, then ask why. Don't be afraid to ask why, because the more you know, I'm a big believer in like knowledge is power. So the more you know, the better equipped you're going to be to deal with whatever in life. um yeah, so always stay curious and don't just take people's word for things. Like if something doesn't make sense to you, ask why and make sure you know more.
I'm gonna add an end question on that. Whereas asking why served you really well,
Oh
whereas
god,
being curious served you really well. Putting you on a spot, right?
you are. I think for some people it can get quite irritating, but I think that is to have confidence and know that the knowledge you're taking in, right? Because I think we're definitely in a society where social media portrays a lot. We're big consumers, right? So we're on our phones a lot. We're taking in a lot of information every day. That can get really overwhelming and carry over negatively into our lives if we're not filtering it out appropriately. So if something doesn't make sense to us, or if something's not, it's got no logic behind it, or you don't understand the reasoning, you could well be taking on information that's either damaging long term or not going to serve you in any sort of way. So until you understand the why and you think, okay, this makes sense, I understand this, then take on that information, sure, but as long as it's going to have a positive influence later down the line. Like if you're consuming information and you're just taking people's word for it, take like fitness and diet culture, for example, you could be taking on like, oh, carbs are bad. Oh, I'm just going to take that. I'm not going to ask why. I'm just going to be told carbs are bad. Next thing you know, you could be putting yourself in the worst state ever where your health is concerned because you're not giving your bodies its primary source of energy, and that's going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect your physical health, your performance. That's just a pretty obvious example, but
Yeah, no, great example though.
yeah,
Perfect. Hannah, how old are you? I know it's not really a traditional question to ask a woman, but I'm gonna go for it.
I'm 23.
23. 23, insanely wise, insanely driven, and an insane hybrid athlete as well. I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. I know we're going to stay in touch, and hopefully I may see you in London in 10 days time. Where can people come and find you if they want to come and find you?
So I'm primarily on Instagram. So it's at lifestyle.with.hannah.
Perfect. I'll drop that in the episode description. If you have enjoyed today's episode with me and Hannah and I, please go over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and drop a 5-star review. It goes a long, long way to helping the show. And if you are watching on YouTube, hello. Below you, down here somewhere, like and subscribe. It genuinely helps so much. And if you want to drop a comment on it as well, it can drive traffic our way. I will catch you here with a new episode every Friday. Take care.